Have you ever looked at a flight map and wondered why some routes exist but others just don't? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on the invisible rules that control where every single airline is allowed to fly. It's a system that, believe it or not, affects every international trip you take.
I mean, think about it for a second. Why can't a Japanese airline just decide to start flying between, say, London and New York? It seems like a no-brainer, right? More competition, probably cheaper flights for us. But they can't. And the reason why is a story that goes back decades.
You heard that right. The entire global aviation network is basically running on a framework that was put together at the end of World War II. The sky isn't some kind of open marketplace. It's a super regulated system, all built on agreements that are nearly 80 years old. And the whole thing is built around this concept called the freedoms of the air. But, that name's a little misleading. Don't let the word freedom fool you. These aren't rights that airlines just have. Nope. They are very specific privileges that countries have to negotiate with each other, usually through some really complex treaties. So let's rewind a bit. It all kicks off at the Chicago Convention in 1944. The U.S., which had these huge, powerful airlines, was all for wide open skies. But pretty much every other country was worried their own airlines would get crushed. So they pushed for way stricter rules. What came out of it was a compromise that laid the groundwork for the system we're still using today. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to start with the first 4 freedoms. These are the absolute bedrock of international aviation, the most fundamental rules of the sky. The first 2 are called transit rights, and you should think of them as just the most basic permission slip you can get, the right of passage. Before an airline can even think about selling a ticket, it needs this simple ability to move its planes through another country's airspace. Okay, so the first freedom is as simple as it sounds. You can fly over another country without touching down. The second lets you make a technical stop, so for fuel or maybe some maintenance, but you can't pick up or drop off any passengers. This was a huge deal back in the early days, but with the insane range of modern jets, it's mostly used by cargo planes these days. So flying over and refueling is one thing, but it doesn't exactly pay the bills, does it? For that, airlines need what are called traffic rights. These are the permissions that actually let them do business and, make some money. And this brings us to the absolute bread and butter of international travel, the third and fourth freedoms. The third is the right to fly from your home base to another country. The fourth is the right to fly back home. These 2 are almost always granted together, and they are the foundation of pretty much every international round-trip ticket you've ever bought. Okay, now we're getting to the really juicy part. This next one creates some of the most unique, kind of weird, and interesting flight routes in the world. And honestly, it's a secret weapon for travelers who know about it.
Let's talk about the 5th freedom. Seriously, this one is a total game changer. So here's what makes it so special. The 5th freedom gives an airline the right to sell tickets between 2 countries that are not its home. Now, there's a catch. The flight itself has to either start or end back in the airline's home country. Let's make this real. A Malaysian airline can sell you a ticket for just the Melbourne to Bali leg of its bigger flight to Kuala Lumpur. Or, get this, you can fly from Los Angeles to Paris on Air Tahiti Nui, an airline from French Polynesia. These are what we call 5th freedom routes, and sometimes they can be amazing deals if you know where to look.
And there was a really practical reason for this. Back in the day, planes just couldn't fly these ultra-long distances. They had to make multiple stops, so the 5th freedom let them sell tickets for each part of the journey, which helped them fill up seats and actually make those long, complicated routes profitable.
All right, next up is a really interesting one. It's the freedom it's not officially a freedom at all, but it has become the entire business model for some of the biggest and most powerful airlines in the world.
So meet the 6th freedom. It's really just a clever combination of the 3rd and 4th freedoms we already talked about. An airline picks you up in a foreign country, flies you back to its home airport, and then flies you out to a different foreign country. Just think of it as a layover on a global scale. And who are the kings of this? Oh, you know them. The Gulf carriers, like Emirates, use Dubai as this massive connecting point between Europe and Asia. Copa Airlines does the exact same thing in Panama for North and South America. And Air Canada has built a huge business by funneling passengers from the U.S. through its Canadian hubs to the rest of the world. This freedom is the engine behind the whole hub-and-spoke model you see today. But as you can imagine, not everyone's a fan. Airlines like Qantas in Australia have argued that these Sixth Freedom carriers have an unfair advantage because of where they're located. It creates this intense competition on super profitable routes, like between Australia and Europe, and yeah, it often leads to some political drama. Okay, we've covered the common freedoms. Now let's go deep into the territory of the rarest and most protected rights in all of aviation, the ones that countries almost never, ever grant. Let's put the fifth and seventh freedoms side by side, because the difference is subtle, but it's huge. Remember, a fifth freedom flight has to be connected to the airline's home country, but the seventh freedom, it cuts that cord entirely. It's the right for an airline to operate flights between two foreign countries with zero connection to its home base. So picture an Irish airline flying a route just between Madrid and Stockholm. That's it. It's incredibly rare. And that, my friends, brings us to the absolute holy grail of aviation rights, cabotage. This is the right for a foreign airline to fly domestic routes inside another country. This covers the 8th and 9th freedoms, and it is the most fiercely protected right of them all. And you can see just how rare this is. I mean, look at that. Outside of a super integrated market like the European Union, where yeah, an Irish airline can fly domestic routes in France, cabotage is basically non-existent. Every country protects its domestic airline market like a fortress. Okay. We've thrown a lot of numbers and definitions and history at you. But what does any of this mean for you when you're just trying to book a flight? Why should you care about these invisible rules? Well, here's the bottom line. These freedoms directly control the price and the options you see for your tickets. They define who gets to compete on which routes and who doesn't. They're the reason a direct flight might exist or why it's impossible. And if you understand the fifth freedom, you can sometimes find these really unique flight options that most people just scroll right past. This isn't just theory. It is the hidden architecture of your journey. And that leaves us with one big question. This whole system was designed back in 1944. In a world that's more connected than ever, are these old rules still protecting national interests, or are they just an outdated barrier holding us back from a truly global, open aviation market? Something to think about the next time you're in the air. Thanks for tuning in.